Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and the case of the empty cradle, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The Cradle's Silent Plea. The storm rumbled ominously over Ashcombe, its heart torn between the whimsical whispers of summer and the foreboding dread of autumn's impending grasp. Rain fell like a hammer against the cobblestones, glossing the village in a shimmering veil as if mourning the secrets it harbored. Beneath a darkened eave of the local tavern, two figures huddled close together, their wide eyes drinking in the dismal, wind-swept gloom beyond the flickering lamplight. They were Mrs. Farnsworth, the postmistress, and Mrs. Hargrove, the butcher's wife, who gasped audibly as news of the abandoned babe twisted through the air like lightning. It was left in the old cradle, just back of the church. Mrs. Farnsworth quivered, clutching her shawl as if to ward off the chill in the very bones of the village itself. Not a sign of the mother to be found. They say, it could be a curse. Curse or not, Mrs. Hargrove tempered her breath with fright. It's a damning sign of something amiss in Ashcombe. The last time we saw a mother in desperation. The baker's daughter, yes. The words crackled between them, igniting tales better left buried. As the night deepened, the rain became a relentless torrent, tapping insistently at the windows of the quaint, cottage-like homes. It was in this dampness that Hercule Poirot arrived, stepping methodically from his vehicle, an immaculate silhouette against the chaotic backdrop. The great detective, with his sharply creased suit and meticulous demeanor, had accepted an invitation from the village vicar, Mr. Hanna, a stout man with a clean-shaven face and a furrowed brow, who had said, in clipped tones, "Only you, Monsieur Poirot, can bring light to this darkness." Inside the church, a regal silence enveloped the air, broken only by the occasional creak of aging wood. The vicar led Poirot to the sanctuary, where congregational candles flickered, casting soft shadows over the marble altar. There, in the center of the nave, lay a cradle, its polished wood gleaming amid the dust motes swirling overhead. The cradle was empty, save for a puffy white blanket, a spectacle of simplicity that invoked the harshness of the world beyond. It was put here, abandoned, just moments before the storm hit. Mr. Hanna clutched his damp prayer book. No mother. His voice broke. No one to care for it. Poirot stepped closer, his sharp eyes sweeping the scene with keen scrutiny. "Non, mon ami, it is not merely an empty cradle. It is a sunflower amid thorns. There are ambiance and desperation entwined here." He knelt, observing the details, a fine thread caught in a jagged edge of the cradle, likely torn from a garment in haste. "Who would abandon their child?" the vicar questioned, mouth a thin line of doubt. "Ah, there are many reasons," said Poirot, rising, hands clasped thoughtfully. "Regret, fear, and sometimes a powerful entanglement of secrets. You must ask the villagers. Gossip is often a reliable witness. And what of the woman who finds herself in need?" With that guiding light of inquiry, Poirot stepped back into the storm-rattled village, where rain-soaked whispers followed him like shadowy apparitions. He sensed the pulse of Ashcombe beating at his heels. Our purportedly quiet life was shrouded in secrets far darker than anyone could imagine. As he passed by the local bakery, the smells of bread and yeast intermingled with something unidentifiable, a hint of decay, perhaps. The baker, Mr. Renfield, was yet another cog in this delicate machinery of life. His brow knit as he pulled bread from the oven, the glow of his workspace illuminating the night's madness. What'll they say next? The baker's daughter? The vicar's lost control? Think it's an ill omen, Monsieur Poirot? Indeed, Monsieur Renfield, a troubling time we live in, but an omen often shines light upon the shadows of truth. Tell me, what do your ears hear amidst the whispers? Poirot inquired, leaning against the window frame, tracing a finger over the glass, marked by rain and the village's quiet despair. The baker hesitated, scooping flour from a battered bag, casting furtive glances at his patrons. There's a tale of Miss Eliza, the new schoolteacher. She sought out the young women of Ashcombe, rummaging through their lives as if they were mere objects of study. Must admit, she was not one who gained many friends. Poirot's mind whirred with possibilities. Perhaps she bore witness to a secret, and secrets, they file away until they cannot be contained any longer. Just then, a girl with unkempt hair and tattered shoes burst through the door, her breath labored and eyes wide with an urgency that sent shivers up Poirot's spine. "Sir, you must come. Miss Eliza. They say she's—" The storm raged outside, mirrors of chaos reflecting the unspeakable truths waiting to surface. "What is it, child?" Poirot asked, taking a step closer, his heart pounding with anticipation. "Miss Eliza's missing," the girl choked out, clearing her throat in panic. "And there's blood." Poirot propelled into motion, coaxing the girl to lead him as he turned back to Renfield, his mind racing ahead. In the chaos, secrets unfold, and among them we shall find the mother, perhaps, or the link that entangles this cradle with the living. As the girl ran ahead into the rain-soaked streets, Hercule Poirot felt the weight of Ashcombe pressing down upon him like a phantom grasping for mercy. On this night of whispers and shadows, he had only begun to peel back the layers of mysteries that lay ahead, each leading deeper into a tapestry of deceit and a cradle that cried out for answers. And as he followed the desperate girl, the storm echoed with unsaid truths, leaving a lingering promise in the air, a promise of revelations that would shake the very foundation of Ashcombe to its core. The chase had begun. Chapter 2. A Sudden Departure. The rain had transformed Ashcombe into a glistening mirror under the moonlight, each droplet reflecting the shadows of the looming Harrington estate. Inside, the atmosphere simmered with pretense and unspoken tension, the air thick with the scent of fine cigars intermingled with the distinct aroma of damp wool coats. An opulent soiree was underway, illuminating the grand halls with light that danced upon gilded frames and polished marble. Laughter floated like silk, concealing the undercurrents of gossip that wove their way through the gathering. Hercule Poirot stood beside the hearth, his keen eye assessing the room. He had received an invitation somewhat hastily after the strange events of the night before. The Harringtons, known for their lavish celebrations and influential guests, had been thrown into chaos by the recent disappearance of Miss Eliza, the local schoolteacher. As he sipped his glass of sherry, Poirot felt the weight of expectation in the air. Many were hoping for the great detective to unveil the secrets lurking behind the facade of glamour. The laughter grew louder, competing, as Sir Reginald Harrington, resplendent in his tailcoat, raised a glass to toast. "To friendship and to the warmth of our lovely Ashcombe," he proclaimed, his voice a sonorous echo in the cavernous room. Among the gathered crowd, however, the faces betrayed a disquieting tension, furtive glances exchanged like currency, each one rife with speculation. "Ah, mon cher," Poirot murmured, directing his attention to Lady Harrington, who had an ever-so-slight tremor in her hand as she adjusted the pearls at her throat. "There lie many masks tonight, and not all will hold the same countenance when lifted." Just then, a sharp gasp silenced the jovial air, drawing everyone's eye to the grand staircase, where Clarissa, the Harringtons' niece, stood, her face pale and her eyes wide with shock. "Marie is gone!" she cried out, panic lacing her voice. The frivolity transformed into a hush heavy with uncertainty and disapproval. "Marie?" questioned Mr. Kensington, a self-important politician with a penchant for monopolizing conversations. "You mean Marie Faulkner, the charming actress?" His brow creased as he shifted uncomfortable in his bespoke trousers. Clarissa nodded fiercely, her voice quaking. She was here only moments ago. I swear I just saw her. Now she's disappeared." Pandemonium erupted as guests turned to one another, whispers of speculation cascading through the room. Poirot stepped forward, his posture straightening with purpose. "What do you mean by disappeared, mademoiselle? A woman like Miss Faulkner does not simply vanish without a trace. It is a matter of significance, no less than the duty of all gathered here to assist." Sir Reginald clenched his jaw, attempting to regain control of the room. "Marie could not have gone far. Perhaps she simply stepped outside for fresh air," he interjected, but the skepticism in his voice rang hollow against the shimmering chandeliers above. "Or perhaps she was spirited away," Lady Harrington whispered, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for unseen foes in their midst. Poirot caught the flicker of apprehension in her gaze, tethered to an emotion far deeper than the ordinary concern expressed at a party. A palpable tension gripped the gathering, a blend of intrigue, envy, and hidden fear. Poirot could not ignore that subtext. It was the very essence of their human nature to conceal darker thoughts beneath social graces. "Let us not allow this moment to slip further into hysteria," Poirot suggested, his eyes surveying the group, capturing every nuance of their expressions. "I require information. Who last saw Miss Faulkner? Where was she last known to be?" A collective shuffle echoed through the guests as they exchanged guilty glances. But it was Barnaby, the estate curator, who finally spoke up, albeit hesitantly. "I saw her in the garden just before I came in. She spoke of needing to clear her head. She seemed troubled. Troubled enough to leave a party filled with friends. That is telling," Poirot replied sharply, his mind racing. He turned to Clarissa. "Lead the way, mademoiselle. We shall explore the garden of mystery together." As they stepped out into the rain, a cool gust whisked past them, carrying a hint of musty earth and damp foliage. In the garden, shadows formed strange shapes under the spectral glow of lanterns flickering against the trees like whispers of the night. Poirot noted the dampness of the grass, where footprints had disturbed the stillness, leading away from the light of the path. "Here, Monsieur Poirot," Clarissa pointed, her finger trembling slightly as she indicated a broader area hidden beneath a curtain of branches. Alongside a garden statue of an angel stood a discarded scarf, vibrant red against the grey backdrop, Marie's trademark color. "I see," Poirot murmured, crouching to inspect it. "And what else do you see, my dear Clarissa?" The crumpled fabric seems innocent enough. No, yet it shares a connection. Tomorrow's news will be smeared upon a canvas of indignation if we do not act with haste. Just then, the sound of a hurried footfall broke the stillness. An outsider, a figure drenched in shadow, appeared, his face obscured by the brim of his hat. The figure halted abruptly. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, voice sharp and defensive. Poirot rose, instinctively stepping in front of Clarissa. "And you are? A guardian of the night, perhaps?" The man shifted uneasily, his gaze darting from the scarf to the guests huddled near the estate. "You best not linger here," he warned, voice laced with a tense urgency that suggested he was more than an ordinary visitor. "Things are not as they appear." "Curious, very curious," Poirot replied, a glint of intrigue in his eye as he weighed the man's words. An unsettling sense washed over him, one of impending revelation. The clock was ticking. Time would not wait as the night deepened. With a defiant resolve, the figure turned and fled into the shadows that hemmed the garden. Poirot straightened, sensing the gravity of the revelations yet to unfold. "We must move quickly, Clarissa. Miss Faulkner's sudden departure bears more weight than mere intrigue. It is a link to the mystery of the empty cradle, the fabric of Ashcombe's secrets twisting in the rain-soaked breeze." As they retraced their steps back to the estate, Poirot's mind raced, each twist of thought layering suggestions upon one another. Somewhere within these disappearances lay the key to unraveling the intricate tapestry of lives entwined, each thread leading back to the heart of something dark and hidden, a darkness that he was determined to expose. As the murmurs of the guests echoed behind them, Poirot felt the pulse of urgency quicken, a sense that the stakes had been raised in their quiet village, and the erratic facade of civility was but a fragile veil, bellying a far more sinister reality yet to be uncovered. The chase was well and truly on, and Hercule Poirot intended to see it through to its shocking end. Chapter 3. Words that Fall Silent. The rain drummed furiously against the cobblestones of Ashcombe, creating a melancholic orchestra that echoed through the still night. Hercule Poirot stepped delicately over puddles as he made his way to the Harrington estate, his mind racing with the dark implications of Marie Faulkner's mysterious disappearance. Shadows danced under the flickering street lamps, casting long forms that twisted grotesquely, as if the very night conspired to keep secrets buried. As he approached the grand front door of the estate, illuminated by a single golden light, the ominous sense of foreboding gnawed at him. His keen instincts told him the joy of the soirée would soon be marred by another revelation, a possibility he hoped would steer the narrative toward clarity, yet feared would deepen the divides that already roiled beneath Ashcombe's elegant facade. The door creaked open, revealing a flustered Barnaby, the estate curator, his pallor stark against the warm glow of the interior. "Monsieur Poirot, you must come quickly," Barnaby puffed out, the urgency in his voice slicing through the night's tension. "It is Miss Faulkner. She has been found." Poirot's mind immediately jumped to the worst of scenarios, his heart pounding as he followed Barnaby through the lavish halls, their footsteps echoing ominously against polished marble. The room they entered was shrouded in shadows, each corner filled with cloaks of uncertainty. Poirot's eyes caught a glimpse of Clarissa, her flushed face betraying a sense of dread far beyond the frivolity of before. "In a locked room?" Poirot asked sharply, his brows knitting together in concentration as he surveyed the scene. The morbid stillness that pervaded the air suggested inevitability, a sensation that perhaps the essence of tragedy was too diverse for one mind to grasp alone. Yes, we found the door bolted from the inside. There is no other conceivable entry, Barnaby explained, his voice trembling slightly. I don't understand how she could have. Poirot advanced towards the ornate door that stood ominously ajar. Every muscle tightened as he stepped inside a small study. The dim light revealed a chilling tableau, the lifeless form of Marie Faulkner sprawled on the floor, an expression of terror frozen upon her visage. Poirot knelt beside her, a deathly quiet descending upon him as he observed the scene. Her signature red scarf lay discarded, curled like a serpent beside the overturned chair. Poirot's sharp eyes shot around the room, cataloguing every detail, every clue. The neat stack of letters on the polished mahogany desk, the partially opened window, the chilling absence of any sign of a struggle. "Where is the letter?" Poirot murmured to himself, recalling Lady Harrington's panicked whisper just hours earlier. She had mentioned a letter intended for Marie, one that held truths that might unravel the tangled web of Ashcombe's secrets. It must exist. Give me the context, my dear friends. What happened after you discovered her? Miss Faulkner was to receive a letter. One of great importance, Clarissa interjected, her voice barely a whisper. It was lost. Lost. Or perhaps deliberately concealed, Poirot suggested, his mind racing against the backdrop of understanding that these occurrences were sinful whims of fate and human intent. There lies the crux of the matter, does it not? One cannot disregard the fragility of truths when they flutter like moths drawn to the flame of scandal. The reflections in the flickering candlelight cast shadows on the walls, transforming the room into a labyrinth of secrets. Poirot stood up, his analytical mind clicking into place, detecting the subtle shifts in Clarissa's demeanor. "What did you know of this letter, mademoiselle?" he continued, studying her face. "Did Marie share her worries with you?" An indecisive frown passed over Clarissa's features, and she stayed silent for just a moment too long. "We spoke, but she didn't reveal the specifics to me, only that she felt someone was watching her. Watching her, like a predator stalking prey. So often do we overlook shadows cast by others," Poirot interjected, the thought unfurling. "Surely you sensed her fear blossoming even before this disastrous soiree. Fear points like arrows toward culpability." "My thoughts were elsewhere," Clarissa whispered, her eyes glistening with hurt. But Poirot detected her disquiet, an emotional strain threaded through the warmth of her pulse like a well-hidden dagger. As he surveyed the untimely demise of Marie, Poirot noted how her hand lay clutching at a scrap of paper. Carefully, he pried it from her lifeless fingers. The ink was smudged, but he could discern fragments of a familiar name. Eliza. Tension surged within him, demanding to draw connections, though anger threatened to uproot the clarity of logic. The schoolteacher, she must have played a role. As I suspected, Eliza held secrets, and now it seems her whispers have turned deadly. The atmosphere crackled with unease, the implications suffusing the air with electricity. "You must retrieve this letter, Barnaby. It may hold the key to all that has transpired. And here we are, standing upon the precipice of revelation without having the language of truth to propel us forward." "What is it you mean to do, Poirot?" Barnaby asked, anxiety etched across his lined features. Poirot allowed a moment of silence to envelop them, contemplating the clandestine web that captivated Ashcombe. "You will accompany me to Eliza's quarters. Train the light of scrutiny upon those darkened walls. for in there lies more than mere parables of old. Memories, memories waiting to fall silent. With purpose igniting his resolve, Poirot turned, motioning for Clarissa and Barnaby to follow him. As they stepped through the door, the air was punctuated by a sudden blast of wind that whispered secrets of its own. Outside, the rain continued to pour, but Poirot felt it, an unshakable itch beneath his skin, a certain knowledge that what awaited him in that room was something altogether more sinister. As they traversed the damp corridors of the Harrington estate, Poirot's mind danced with deductions, foreshadowing every shadow's intent. One step led to another, but an unexamined thought flickered like a dying ember. The letter, its whereabouts obscured, like they themselves, were now cloaked in ambiguity. In that moment, Poirot swore to unravel every fraying thread. Before time elapsed, and the truth drowned beneath the weight of complicity, the spectre of deceit loomed larger still, tantalizingly close, taunting him as they reached the door to Eliza's room. And yet, what awaited beyond held within it a precision more devastating than he could have accounted for. Words that fell silent, veiled beneath layers of an intricate design. With a resolute breath, Poirot prepared to confront the shadows cast by the night, knowing the murmur of truths yet, both undelivered and devastating, began to echo in the depths of his keen mind. The plight of Ashcombe awaited resolution. Chapter 4. Shadows of the Past. The storm's fury intensified as the rain lashed against the windows of Eliza's quarters, each droplet seeming to conspire against the fragile peace that Ashcombe had managed to maintain until now. Hercule Poirot stood quietly at the threshold, an air of ominous anticipation enveloping him. The door was slightly ajar, inviting yet foreboding, like a whisper, threatening to divulge secrets best left unspoken. He exchanged a glance with Barnaby, who had followed, closely behind, his typical stoic expression now marred by uncertainty. "Shall we?" Poirot's voice was a smooth thread, cutting through the tension, and with a swift motion, he pushed open the door. The hinges creaked in protest, revealing a room steeped in twilight shadows. Dust motes floated sluggishly through the dim light, illuminating littered papers strewn across the desk, and a heavy solitude that seemed to cling to the air. Eliza stood by the window, her back to them, staring out into the merciless downpour, her silhouette framed against the glass. "You were out there in the storm, weren't you?" Poirot's observation hung in the air, piercing through the melancholy ambience. She turned slightly, opening her mouth as if to speak, but hesitated, swallowing her thoughts instead. "Were you misplacing your letters, perhaps?" Poirot continued, his eyes narrowing. "Did you perceive the creeping darkness of this very night?" "What do you mean?" Eliza's voice held a rare edge, a tremor of indignation surfacing beneath the calm facade she maintained. Poirot stepped further into the room, carefully taking in every detail. The desk was cluttered with bills and documents, but notably, a corner of a red envelope peeking out from beneath a disheveled stack caught his eye. "A letter, yes. Care to explain its presence?" His voice was calm, but unwavering. Eliza hesitated, the life in her eyes dimming, as she turned her gaze back to the relentless rain. "It's nothing of consequence. Merely correspondence I've yet to file. You have no cause to inspect my belongings, Poirot." "Ah, c'est ici que le mystère se dessine," Poirot replied, a gleam of determination flaring up in his expression. "Your discomfort hints at concealed truths. The letter from yesterday is no ordinary detail. It was intended for Miss Faulkner, and now she lies cold. Tell me, mademoiselle, Is it hiding some secret regarding the matter of the will? At the mention of the will, Eliza stiffened, her breath faltering. For the briefest moment, why should you even presume to involve me in the affairs of the Harringtons? It was not I who cast the shadows that now envelop them. Is that so? It appears one cannot help but be bound to their family's history. Hidden pasts are like weeds in a fine garden, mademoiselle, Poirot challenged, moving closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. And, might I add, it seems this family estate is built upon the very foundations of grudges and greed. The tension in the room thickened palpably, each ticking second vibrating with unspoken fears. Poirot turned his attention back to the desk, itching to lay hands on the letter which could serve as an anchor in his swirling storm of theories. And yet, one must also ask, what does the absence of this will bring forth? The Harrington family may very well see their blood turn bitter over mere ink on paper. They guard it closely, Eliza replied, her voice now a quiet tremor. Lady Harrington was most insistent, said it contained things that would unsettle. Rumors swirl among them, claims of disinheritance, jealousy and greed blossom under the guise of family love, you understand? Poirot nodded slowly, his mind racing, as pieces began aligning in mysterious patterns. That is the point of unraveling, n'est-ce pas? The shadows gather not to obscure, but to illuminate the dangerous nexus formed amongst them. He stared at Eliza, who visibly wavered, signaling a growing breach in her defenses. What does it matter now? She implored, turning from the window, her eyes flashing with desperate emotion. What I saw, what I know, will only add to their miseries. I will not be their pawn. You have seen something then, Poirot pressed, noting the shifting shadows across her features, shadows that hinted at fear, layered over betrayal. A will, perhaps? Or truth to be divulged? You wouldn't be the first to tread the hallowed halls of ambition. Eliza's lips twitched, memories flickering across her eyes. I cannot. I have kept my silence for too long for my own safety. She stumbled over her words, panic intertwining with resolve. If the will goes missing, it only brings forth ruin. The air in the room shifted, cold dread weaving through Poirot's thoughts. What must be procured can never be truly lost, Eliza, for it exists, imprinting upon hearts and mind. He gestured toward the corner of the desk, where the envelope lay enticingly, beckoning with hints of final truths. If you will not speak, let the letter speak for you. What secrets held within can silence the storms outside? Eliza hesitated for a moment longer before retreating toward the desk. In a swift motion, she snatched up the red envelope and thrust it toward Poirot. Then take it. Perhaps it will uncover what lies hidden among the Harringtons, a thread that could unravel their unyielding bonds. With trembling hands, Poirot accepted the envelope, opening it delicately, revealing not a will, but pages filled with hastily scribbled notes. His senses heightened, taking note of Eliza's reaction as her face paled, a profound clue lurking just beyond her grasp. What exactly do these notes pertain to? He murmured, his eyes scanning hastily written names and unqualified truths, each line tethering back to the Harrington family like a map drawn in invisible ink. They should not be looked at, Eliza urged, her voice now growing frantic, as if the more she exposed, the closer danger loomed. But Poirot was already too far ensnared in the grasping vines of the mystery. Each name struck a chord within him, a rhythm aligned to grievances festering through generations. Then they hold weight, he surmised, his gaze unwavering. You, give me substance, Cast light upon your shadows. The downpour outside intensified, a frenzy of nature that echoed Poirot's racing heartbeat. Shadows danced farther back into the recesses of Eliza's room as the revelation was coiling into a striking climax, a truth that could very well bury the Harringtons even deeper into their entwined resentments. With urgency, he turned to Barnaby. "We must gather the others at once. This keystone letter, fraught with hidden histories, could surface the flood of fatal desires once deeply buried." But as he closed the envelope, a new sound emerged through the clamor of the storm. A sharp, resounding crack echoed like gunfire, shattering the night, silencing even the rain for a heartbeat. Eliza's eyes widened, breath caught as Poirot descended into the unfolding chaos, sensing a perilous shift beyond the walls of the manor. "I insist, stay close to me," he instructed firmly, feeling the pulse of unresolved tension bloom, urging him forward into the murky depths of the past, where shadows stirred with malice, eager to swallow the light of truth whole. The Harringtons' war of shadows had merely begun, and the storm was far from merely atmospheric. What lay ahead would unravel secrets not even the rain could cleanse, as the essence of betrayal steeped relentlessly within Ashcombe's battered walls. Chapter 5. The Vanishing Heir. The storm raged on, a relentless torrent that seemed to echo the mounting tension within the walls of Ashcombe Manor, and in the very heart of its noble lineage, another storm was brewing, one of desperation and dread. Hercule Poirot stood among a hesitant gathering within the ornate parlor, the air thick with apprehension, when suddenly a sharp, frantic knock reverberated against the heavy oak door. Clarissa, standing slightly behind Barnaby, flinched, clutching her shawl tightly around her shoulders. "Who could that be?" she whispered, eyeing them with a mixture of concern and intrigue. "Perhaps we shall soon uncover a fresh mystery," Poirot replied, his voice dripping with an unsettling calm as he moved toward the door. Upon opening it, he was met by the breathless form of Lady Harrington, her face alight with a mixture of panic and disbelief. "Poirot!" she exclaimed, her voice faltering. "It's dreadful! It's truly dreadful!" "What has happened, madam?" Poirot prompted, his brows knitting together in concern. "It is Geoffrey, my son, the heir. He is gone, vanished without a trace." The desperation in her voice wrapped around Poirot like a shroud, and a familiar prickling sense of urgency sparked within him. "Gone?" he repeated, disbelief echoing in every syllable. Above the clatter of rainfall and thunder, her words seemed to magnify the gravity of the situation, the very air around them thickening with foreboding. "And the last time you saw him?" "An hour ago, perhaps. He was studying in the library," Lady Harrington stammered, her eyes darting around the room. "I thought he might find comfort in the storm, but I was just in the kitchen when I noticed the silence, and now the library—" She halted, her voice hitching as reality set in that her son had simply vanished. Poirot turned to Barnaby and Clarissa, their expressions mirroring each other's shocked expressions, before he invoked a plan. "We must search the estate, immediately." "Of course," Barnaby responded, moving toward the library as Poirot remained poised, lost in thought. What could compel a young man to disappear amid such chaos? Clarissa mused aloud, her brow furrowing. The pressure of the will, perhaps? "No, non," Poirot retorted sharply, a flash of clarity igniting his already active mind. "To vanish implies intent. There lies a difference, a message perhaps left behind." As the three moved into the library, The scent of aged books mingled with the dampness of the storm. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he absorbed the atmosphere. The rain tapped frantically against the window panes, a primal chorus that drowned out any facade of tranquility. "Look here," Barnaby remarked, stepping around a grand, polished mahogany desk. "A letter? It lies strewn amongst the tomes." He handed it to Poirot, whose careful fingers smoothed over the delicate paper as he scanned the hastily scrawled words. "The truth shall bury the lies," Poirot read aloud, his voice echoing throughout the library, charged with revelation. What an ominous statement to leave behind. "What could it mean?" Clarissa asked, pushing her dark hair off her face with urgency. "Could it be a clue?" "This tells us much," Poirot insisted, his mind racing through the implications. "Geoffrey has not merely vanished for safety, he is entangled in this web of lies, a decision perhaps motivated by the secrets that shroud the Harrington family. They do say that those dosed in proximity can wrest secrets from each other." As he surveyed the room, an observation struck him. Many papers here are unsettlingly disorganized, a sign of a hasty exit, an unprepared mind, or perhaps, he pondered aloud, a struggle. He dropped the letter onto the desk, focusing on the scattered books, first editions and scribbled notes, hints of Geoffrey's hidden desires scattered like confetti in the gusty winds. The will, Poirot muttered, an idea sparking brightly. "Do you think it has something to do with it?" Barnaby inquired, eyes narrowing as he followed Poirot's train of thought. "Certainement. Geoffrey could have acted out of fear of the will's implications, which suggests his disappearance may be voluntary, but also linked to a harvest of secrets." Poirot tilted his head, considering. Someone cautioned him, perhaps. Or worse, a family member introduced peril, Clarissa added, her voice winded with apprehension. They departed the library, marching along the corridors of the estate, the rain pouring fiercely as Poirot scrutinized each corner. There was an undeniable trepidation, one that made the air grow denser, as if it contained dark whispers of betrayal. "Let us gather the family in the drawing-room," Poirot urged, his resolve firm as he summoned strength from the very storm raging outside. "We shall unravel the connections, the weaknesses, the alignments of jealousy that swirl amongst them." As they entered the drawing-room, it felt deceptively cozy, illuminated by flickering candles that didn't quite chase away the deep shadows pooling in the corners. The stricken family members shuffled in their places, mounting dread coiling around them. Lady Harrington, trembling, stood beside Eliza, an awkward tension weaving its way through their linked arms. "Do any of you know of Geoffrey's whereabouts?" Poirot confronted them with a sharp gaze sweeping the room. "I cannot fathom what could compel him to leave," Lady Harrington cried, tears glistening on her cheeks. "We must find him." "Fear not, madame, for I gained clues even as the storm outside churns violently," Poirot replied over the tumult. "But first, tell me plainly, what does Geoffrey know that could have prompted this disappearance? What family secrets could have driven him to bury the truth?" A murmur amongst the guests broke the silence. Clarissa looked at Eliza, who remained unnervingly still, eyes darting as if trapped within her thoughts. Then, in the charged atmosphere, the door creaked open, halting all movement. A figure appeared. Geoffrey Harrington, bedraggled but resolute, soaked through his clothing, his white-knuckled grip wrapping tightly around a small, leather-bound book. "Mother, it's time to unveil the truths of our lineage," he declared, stepping fully into the light of the room, a spectre emerging from the storm. The gravity of his proclamation hung heavily in the air, chilling the very marrow inside Poirot's bones. What weighty unearthing came with his return, and how deep would it scour the already cavernous void of familial loyalty? As he raised the small book, Poirot's mind raced. His instincts screamed that they were teetering on the precipice of revelation. The storm outside, eclipsed only by the tempest within Ashcombe Manor's heart. Chapter 6. Words Beneath the Rags. The heavy rain continued its relentless drumming, a sinister harmony that amplified the unease simmering within Ashcombe Manor. Poirot stood in the hallway, the flicker of candlelight casting long shadows that danced ominously upon the walls. The revelation of Geoffrey's sudden return had injected a fresh surge of hope, yet the air grew thick with tension as thoughts of hidden secrets and veiled betrayals seeped through the manor's creaking beams. "Madame, may I suggest the parlour?" Poirot proposed, the gentle rhythm of his words perhaps contradicting the severity of the atmosphere. "Geoffrey seems eager to share whatever he has uncovered. Let us allow him a proper audience." With an imperceptible nod from Lady Harrington, the group shifted to the parlour, where its delicately patterned wallpaper did little to soothe the horrors lurking in hidden corners. There was a stillness, pregnant with anticipation, as Geoffrey stepped forward with the small, leather-bound book, its edges frayed, clearly loved and loathed in equal measure. "You must understand," he began, breath catching slightly. "This journal belonged to my father. It holds truths I dare not voice without seeing them translated into the safety of words." Poirot leaned forward with keen interest, his dark eyes glimmering. "And what, if I may inquire, do these words contain? Are they laden with declarations of love, confessions of betrayal, or secrets buried long beneath the rags of forgotten generations?" Geoffrey hesitated, his fingers nervously tracing the worn leather as he weighed the gravity of the conversation, twisting in the air. "It chronicles his plight, and therein lie accounts of a love turned sour, his struggles with the Harrington legacy. I believe it may illuminate the shadows we'd rather leave untouched." "Then let us unearth it together, non?" Poirot urged, a spark of excitement igniting his detective disposition. "But first, your absence. Was it a choice? Or, perhaps, a necessity?" "It was both," Geoffrey admitted, regret etched upon his features. "The push of expectation was suffocating, and I needed to find the truth for myself, away from the influences that clouded our family ties." Before Geoffrey could elaborate, Eliza interrupted, her voice strained. "But what of the storm? What of the vanishing? You weren't safe, Geoffrey. What drove you to return here, drenched in despair?" "Something drew me back. The weight of the legacy calling me home," Geoffrey replied, glancing meaningfully towards the darkened window, the storm's fury a mirrored reflection of his own inner turmoil. "And then there's this journal. I discovered it, hidden in the study, tucked behind an old portrait of my grandfather." Poirot felt a fresh surge of urgency rise within him. "Does it mention your grandfather, the summer he vanished? In whose shadow do these secrets linger?" Geoffrey nodded gravely. "Yes, there are passages that speak of a rivalry. My father loathed the very mention of his own father's name. It seems that there was a woman, my grandmother, who stood between them, a love story marked by deceit." Eliza shifted uneasily, her anxiety palpable. "You must be cautious, Geoffrey. You risk igniting a feud that could consume us all, rather than heal." "Buried truths can only fester if left unchecked, mademoiselle," Poirot interjected sternly, his voice a soft but deliberate counterweight to the growing storms inside and outside. Unearthing each layer may bring forth a path to justice, or at the very least, peace. With a determined nod, Geoffrey opened the journal, revealing a chaotic scrawl. Some passages legible, while others were barely decipherable. It's a mix of thoughts, diary entries, and poetry. It appears my father was indeed tormented by love, his writings frayed with longing and regret. He pointed to a section, his voice steadying. This bit struck me. A curse inherited from ashes. The facade we wear becomes our prison. Ah, profound metaphor. Poirot mused appreciatively, observing the forcefulness of Geoffrey's words. But then his brow furrowed. Something felt crucially awry. He leaned closer to the journal, examining the hurried strokes, especially the smudged blotches that seemed nervous rather than literary. Geoffrey, was this written in haste, or does it hold deeper, darker meanings? It was a fit of emotion. Perhaps fear or impulsiveness could have motivated the erratic handwriting, Geoffrey admitted, concern darkening his expression. I couldn't fully grasp his intentions, but it left me shivering. I dare suggest we take a more careful look, Poirot insisted, his gaze narrowing as he turned the pages with meticulous attention. And perhaps we will uncover a thread that can unravel the fabric of resentment sewn between your family. Just as the rain crescendoed, another loud crack echoed, this time a furious crackling of lightning, illuminating the room for a fleeting moment. In that trembling heartbeat, the flicker of shadows unveiled more than just creeping shapes. It revealed that Eliza had retreated slightly, her eyes darting toward the journal, fear etched across her features. Geoffrey, you need to be cautious. These pages, what you uncover can change everything, Eliza warned, her voice quivering. Poirot's instincts flared, piecing together the fragments of their collective apprehensions. A hidden drama could lie layered within those rags of history. Eliza, what is it that you know beyond this journal? What ties your lineage to Geoffrey's? As Eliza opened her mouth, words caught in her throat. The air became unbreathable, stretching thin with unsaid confessions. Suddenly, the room's warmth evaporated, seeping into an uncomfortable silence, pregnant with accumulating dread. Then, as if driven by unseen forces, Poirot reached for the small, leather-bound book, flipping through the pages with renewed fervor. His eyes settled on a final entry, darker than the storm's clouds, a chilling statement that sent a shiver down his spine. To protect our blood, one must learn to bury the past, no matter the cost. Here, he exclaimed. This signifies the heart of the matter, and may indeed hold the key to a revelation far grimmer than anticipated. With an expression that defied despair, he raised his gaze to the others, the shadows of suspicion now lurking on every face. The time is upon us. We must confront the remains of this legacy, lest we tread deeper into peril. As lightning illuminated the room once more, Eliza shuddered, horror crystallizing on her face. We cannot just dig into the past without considering the present. But Geoffrey stood tall, emboldened by revelation. Then let us unveil the truth, together. As he braced himself for what was to come, the air thick with uncommunicated fears, Poirot made a final note in his mind, pieces shifting, demanding to align. The storm outside mirrored their own tempest, while rags of family, secrets clamored for exposure, seeking reshaping within the ever-darkening night of Ashcombe Manor. The crucial truth waited just beneath the surface, shrouded in shadows and rags, but for whose hands would be stained red first? As the thunder rolled overhead, The storm within propelled them onto a path obscured yet unyielding, where whispered betrayals held the promise of dread. The awful weight of the unknown hung palpably in the air, threatening to crush them under its veil. Chapter 7. The Echo of Lies. The storm outside escalated, sheets of rain hammering against the windows with such fury that the very glass seemed to shudder in trepidation. Within the confines of Ashcombe Manor, the atmosphere became increasingly stifling, alive with whispered secrets and haunted glances. Hercule Poirot, with that innate sense of foreboding that made him a master of deduction, felt the tension coil around the room like a serpent poised to strike. He was acutely aware that the revelations of the journal held more gravity than mere family history. They were the very key to untangling the convoluted web of deceit enveloping the Harringtons. Geoffrey stood, clutching the leather-bound book, his brow knit in determination as he began to turn the brittle, yellowed pages. The air was thick with anticipation, and Poirot could sense the tremors of urgency emanating from both him and Eliza. "Geoffrey," he said, his voice steady amidst the thunder's growl, "let us not dwell too deeply in the shadows of the past, without a plan for how to emerge into the light. What evidence do we have that will expose the roots of your father's discontent?" Tension rippled through Geoffrey, eyes blazing as he spoke. "My father spoke of betrayal, of a collaboration gone awry that darkened the Harrington legacy. There are notes in here about meetings, secretive meetings with individuals I do not recognize." Geoffrey's finger traced the margins of a page, and Poirot saw it tremble. The emotional weight, palpable. "Such meetings are often conduits for betrayal," Poirot remarked, his mind racing. "An affair of the heart can lead to disastrous consequences when combined with the bitter struggles for power." Just then, there was a soft sound, a sharp knock at the door. The echo reverberated through the room, momentarily silencing the tempest within it. Lady Harrington, still visibly shaken, exchanged a wary glance with Eliza as Geoffrey went to the door. Poirot closed the journal, gently, allowing the shadows to gather around the untold truths swirling within it. The door creaked open to reveal a drenched but composed Clarissa, framed against the tempest's backdrop. "I'm sorry to intrude," she said, her voice calm yet laced with urgency, "but I believe we must discuss an alarming revelation concerning our dear Geoffrey." "Please come in," Poirot urged, gesturing toward the now vacant chair, as the overall strategy of information gathering took stock in his mind like pieces on a chessboard. Clarissa stepped inside, her stark figure cutting through the shadows. "I was merely in the drawing room when I overheard a conversation," she began, glancing nervously toward Eliza, who remained fixated on Geoffrey. It seemed urgent. "What did you hear?" Poirot pressed, curiosity piqued as he leaned in, placing his hands together, each finger tapping against the other, as he often did when deep in thought. "They were discussing the meetings," Clarissa related, voice lowered. "A few guests have been conspiring. I couldn't catch all the names, but significant players in this family drama, perhaps even some of your representatives from the estate, gossiping about Geoffrey's father." Geoffrey's eyes widened, the urgency thickening the air. "Who were they?" "I cannot be certain, but I believe Lady Richford's name was mentioned, along with Lord Hawthorne. The conversation hinted at a pact of sorts, a rather dangerous agreement sealed under the guise of friendship, among whom I assume whispered loyalties are nothing more than hollow echoes," she retorted, her words laced with the pulses of revelation. Poirot's mind began to whirl with the implications of such dynamics, knitting the intricate threads of hidden motives and betrayals deeper within the family. "And what does this mean for our pursuit of truth?" he asked as the storm roared, filling the silence that gripped the parlor. "It means," Geoffrey said, crisp and clear, "that we are not merely confronting a family legacy, but an entire network of lies suppressing the very foundations of our world. I must confront them, but in so doing, I risk igniting a wildfire." Poirot placed a hand on Geoffrey's shoulder, his voice soothing. "I admire your bravery, mon ami, but one must tread carefully. Each step can lead to either liberation or further entanglement in the web of deceit. If indeed there are others involved, we can play them off against each other." Eliza suddenly interjected, "But why would we want to expose ourselves to those who conspire and invoke frightful allegiances? Do we really wish to unleash a storm upon ourselves?" Poirot narrowed his eyes, absorbing the gravity of her words while crafting an elaborate tapestry of possibilities. "Ah, but dear Eliza, when one piece is removed from a carefully constructed arrangement, others may begin to perceive the surface of fragility in their alliances. This is where the strength of truth prevails. The weight of lies ultimately crushes those attempting to keep it aloft." As his gaze returned to Geoffrey, there was an unmistakable determination lining the young man's visage. "The meetings you overheard, they're to expose the truth." "Indeed," Poirot confirmed briskly. "I dare say that we need to identify a particular point of intersection, of timing or frequencies. The signature of any conspiracy is often marked by inconsistencies in alibis." Then, amid this heavy exchange, the sound of a glass shattering resonated from the kitchen, breaking their collective focus and sending ripples of panic through the air. "That may not be the only disturbance tonight," Lady Harrington exclaimed, her voice quaking. "Stay vigilant. It could be a deception meant to distract," Poirot cautioned, moving swiftly and decisively toward the door. "Eliza, you stay here. Security is paramount." But as Poirot swung the door open, leading the way into the dark hall suffused with uncertainty, the sight before him gave pause. The room was empty, yet the tension hung palpably in the air, like a breath held just before the plunge into the unknown. In the distance, echoes of voices began to surface, a heated discourse unraveling from beyond the main hall. Poirot perked his ears, detecting significant phrases floating through the air. As he moved closer, one phrase struck him like a bolt of lightning. "We cannot let them find out. The last betrayal cannot surface." The realization hit him with the weight of revelation. The guests were more than merely participants. They were players in a game of survival infused with lie upon lie. As each participant of Ashcombe Manor was drawn further down the rabbit hole of misery and treachery, the last veil of ignorance was about to be torn away. "Geoffrey, we must act swiftly," Poirot declared, a sense of foresight settling in his gut. "The game of chess is soon to enter its final act, and I fear that when light is shed, it shall expose the stark silhouettes of each player, revealing the deepest lies and the darkest intentions. No one shall remain unscathed." As thunder clapped above them, justice felt poised on the precipice of being unveiled, a tantalizing promise of truth just out of reach, yet echoing ever closer as they approached the undiscovered heart of Ashcombe Manor. Chapter 8. The Truth That Haunts. The wind howled relentlessly against the walls of Ashcombe Manor, turning the estate into a fortress besieged by nature's fury. Rain lashed against the leaded windows, painting the glass in swirling patterns that obscured the moody shadows inside. The heavy atmosphere was thick with anticipation as Poirot made his way back toward the drawing room, his mind laden with the urgency of their previous discussions. Every echo of thunder outside felt like a harbinger, a warning that something pivotal was about to unfold. Allons-y, Poirot muttered under his breath, adjusting his coat as he entered the room. To his surprise, he found Lady Harrington seated, staring blankly into the coal fire, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Madame, are you well?" he asked, concern etching its way across his brow. She began to speak, but was interrupted by the creaking of the door, which swung open to reveal a figure cloaked in shadows. It was Clarissa, her face streaked with raindrops, though her eyes shone with a fierce light. "I must speak," she asserted, stepping briskly into the light that flickered from the fire. "Speak, mademoiselle," Poirot urged, the sudden shift in energy igniting the room anew. "I overheard." She hesitated, glancing at Lady Harrington, whose expression had shifted to one of wary curiosity. "I overheard something tonight, while everyone was preoccupied by the storm. A conversation that could shake the tenets of your family's history to its core." Geoffrey's interest peaked, his posture shifting from tension to expectancy. "What did you hear?" "Lord Hawthorne and Lady Richford," she began, pausing to draw a deep breath. "They spoke about the cradle, the one that's been hidden away in the East Wing. They fear its secrets may unravel them all." "Hawthorne and Richford?" Poirot echoed thoughtfully, furrowing his brow. "These names are carving deep into this unfolding mystery. But what significance does the cradle hold?" Clarissa took a step forward, urgency etched on her features. "They spoke of a pact, something that occurred shortly before Geoffrey's father met his demise. They professed that it must remain unseen, hidden by fear, obscured by loathing. I could not glean further specifics, but it was clear they believed the past has the power to destroy their futures." Madame Harrington's hands trembled slightly, and Geoffrey leaned closer. "What does it mean? What lies within that cradle?" "Perhaps," Poirot interjected, "we must have a look. The answers lie there, buried beneath layers of treachery and time." His voice rang with the determination of a man compelled to unveil the truth. "But we should proceed with caution. This house breeds secrets, and secrets breed fear." At that moment, a sudden crash from the direction of the East Wing sent shockwaves through the group. The echo reverberated along the corridor, shaking them from their thoughts. Poirot's heart raced as he looked toward Geoffrey, whose eyes were wide with sudden urgency. "Someone is in there," Geoffrey exclaimed, his voice resolute. Poirot took a moment to assess the situation, his instincts flaring to life as he calculated their next move. "You two must remain here," he instructed, his gaze flickering between Clarissa and Lady Harrington. "I shall investigate. If there is danger, it is better left to me." As he moved toward the door, his mind raced through the implications. Could it be one of the guests? Would they dare to act so brazenly in the midst of the storm? He could not let dread cloud his judgment. The hallway leading to the East Wing felt alive. Shadows danced along the walls as the storm raged outside. The air tasted of moisture and fear, and as he approached the door to the notorious cradle room, he hesitated. His fingers rested lightly on the brass handle, a silent promise to confront whatever darkness awaited within. With one decisive turn, he swung the door open. Inside, debris lay scattered, and the moonlight barely penetrated through grimy windows, casting a ghastly glow across the room. A large, ornate cradle sat in the corner, draped in dusty silks and whispers of forgotten names. It appeared untouched by the storm outside, preserved as though it were a sanctum for secrets. But it was not the cradle that captured Poirot's attention first. It was the figure standing against the wall, cloaked in shadows. "Who dares trespass?" Poirot called, his voice firm yet composed. The figure shifted, revealing a face framed by chaotic hair. Lady Richford. "Mon Dieu," she gasped, fear veiling her eyes. "You must leave. You do not understand what lies here." Poirot stepped closer, feeling the momentum of the moment. The atmosphere thickened as suppressed truths churned beneath the surface. "We understand more than you know, my lady. You must tell us why you are here. What lies within this cradle that can haunt the present so?" Her expression morphed from fear into anger, desperation bubbling to the surface. "If only it were so simple. The past comes rushing back, but we cannot allow it. They wish to reveal the truth, and in doing so, we shall be condemned." "Condemned?" Poirot regarded her with his piercing gaze, eager to sift through the layers of her angst. "This cradle, can it truly sever the ties of deception that intertwine your destinies? Is it the key to unlocking the hidden past, madame?" At that moment, a sound broke the tense air. A cry, muffled, yet filled with unmistakable dread. Poirot's heart raced as he turned back toward the door, instinctively realizing they were not alone. "Someone is coming," he hissed, grasping Lady Richford's arm as he surged back toward the exit. Outside the adjoining room, the laughter twisted into malicious whispers, a chorus of those who operated in the shadows. "Stay behind me," Poirot instructed sharply, leading her toward the shelter of the heavy oak door. Just as they reached it, the voices grew closer, the brightness flickering ominously as torches drew nearer. Lady Richford's face turned pallid as she grasped a fraying edge of the cradle's cover. "You have to help me," she exclaimed as the reality of danger set in. "Every stitch is a memory. They intend to destroy everything, every connection." But before Poirot could respond, the door slammed open, revealing a corridor filled with menacing figures. Among them were Lord Hawthorne and others, faces contorted with indignation and fear. "There is no escape," Hawthorne declared, stepping forward. "Tonight, the last betrayal shall be sealed. No remnants left to haunt us." As the storm roared outside, casting jagged flashes of light into the darkened room, Poirot felt the profound weight of the moment settle around him. "The truth lingers like restless spirits," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone present. "And soon it shall reveal itself through frayed loyalties and damning confessions." With every rooted connection to the past about to unravel, Poirot stood poised, ready to unveil the darkness haunting Ashcombe Manor even as the tempest raged outside. The light of truth was flickering just out of reach, and with it, he sensed the haunting echoes of lives intertwined by betrayal. The confrontation loomed, and time was running out. Chapter 9: A Game of Fools. The storm outside surged with unbridled fury, the winds howling as if they too were desperate to reveal the secrets buried within Ashcombe Manor. Poirot stood amidst the chaos, the heaviness of the moment pressing against him like the unyielding rain battering the windows. The air was thick with the scent of damp wood and impending revelations as he prepared to summon the guests into the drawing room, an arena where lies would be stripped bare and truths, no matter how unpalatable, would claw their way to the forefront. "Gather them," he instructed sharply, his gaze falling upon Geoffrey, who still bore the traces of shock at the events that had unfolded. "Tonight, it shall become quite clear to all our players that we are not in the midst of a masquerade. but rather a reckoning. Geoffrey nodded, a flicker of resolute understanding igniting in his eyes. As the guests trickled into the drawing room, each draped in their finery that now felt ill-fitting, amid the tension, Poirot surveyed them with the keen perception of a master chess player setting the board for a final match. Lady Harrington, her demeanour trembling beneath an elegant exterior, stood rigidly by the hearth as the other guests formed a semicircle, suspicion etching deeper into their expressions. Among them was Lord Hawthorne, pale and sweating under the flickering light, his brow furrowed as he cast furtive glances towards Lady Richford, who was yet another storm, silent and brooding. Poirot stepped forward, his presence cutting through the apprehension like a knife. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began with measured calm, "tonight we delve into the depths of betrayal and greed that have haunted this manor, luring us all into its dark embrace. I implore you, be honest. Every moment of deceit drapes heavy upon your conscience." "I have nothing to hide," Lord Hawthorne blustered, a mocking tone that rang hollow as he crossed his arms defensively. "Ah, Lord Hawthorne," Poirot replied coolly, "your bravado is a shield, but remember that even the bravest knight can falter when cornered. A game of fools plays out, and it is the truth that emerges triumphant." Clarissa, standing somewhat apart, shifted uneasily. "We've all suffered. Families torn apart. Alliances broken." She spoke softly, her voice almost lost in the crackle of the fire. "Perhaps it is time to reveal the shadows that haunt us." Poirot stepped towards her, sensing an unguarded essence that might yield more than others. "You, mademoiselle, harbour an understanding of this perilous tapestry. What do you see when you look upon them?" Her eyes flickered with insight, a fragment of her own desolation evident in her gaze. "Fear and regret are woven into their very beings," she murmured, a tremor of certainty in her tone. "The cradle. It means so much more than longing and loss. It carries a weight of shame and a pact that should have never been forged." The mention of the cradle invoked a collective shiver through the assembly as Poirot's keen mind registered the stunned silence, let alone the powerful undercurrents at play. "Precisely, mademoiselle," he affirmed. "The cradle, hidden and neglected, is the linchpin connecting the sins of the past with the chaos of the present. Those shadows whisper of betrayal and remembrance, a testament to decisions made in the heat of desperation." Lady Richford suddenly interjected, her voice rising above them all, the fear of revelation sparking a newfound intensity in her demeanour. "We did what we believed to be right, to dissolve the bonds that bound us. Yet here you stand, no closer to absolution," Poirot countered, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "You seem to skirt the crux of the matter, madame. What truly transpired within those walls? What truths did you attempt to bury? There lies within that cradle a reflection of your hidden motives." A tremor surged through the room as whispers began to whirl between the guests, accusations manifesting like shadows creeping through the corners. "You have no right to question us," Hawthorne shot back, rage brimming in his voice. "We owe you nothing, certainly not our confessions." "But you owe each other, dear guests," Poirot interjected, his tone like steel, "the truth of your shared history. Remember, love, respect, even vengeance can twist and warp into treachery, our dearest connections morphing into the very chains that bind us." Just then, the flickering amber glow of the fire revealed something behind Lady Harrington's hand, clenched tightly in her lap, a torn, frayed piece of silk, a scrap that matched the covering of the cradle. Poirot's heartbeat quickened as he stepped closer. The silence in the room sharpened to a knife's edge as realization began to dawn upon them. "Madame Harrington," he pressed, his voice low yet commanding, "the remnants of guilt weigh you down. Why do you cling to it so? Surely you cannot accuse me of—" She started, only to falter under the weight of his gaze. Poirot pressed on. "It bears witness to your connection with the cradle, an echo of the past you wish to silence. What did you witness? What pact made centuries ago that drew this shadow upon your family? We no longer delve into mere conjecture." "It was to protect our future," she burst out, her restraint crumbling. "For us to deny, that was the pact. We would suffer in silence if it meant safeguarding what little remained." As the tempest hooted mournfully, outside, Poirot seized her words, piecing them together with meticulous care, his reflective mind turning each statement over like stones in the depths of a stream until the truths beneath stained the water their true colors. "Ah," he exclaimed, the sudden formation of an intricate pattern governing their lives illuminating before him. "You were willing to trade the weight of your heritage for silence. Lies become your salvation. Every lost memory, every severed thread is woven into your own mosaic, entangled in the cradle." The guests shifted nervously, the palpable tension thickening as they felt each secret laid bare, hanging like a dagger above them. In that moment, Poirot sensed their resolve falter, their veils of deception beginning to unravel. Just as a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the drawing room, resonating through the manor with thunderous echoes, Lady Richford leaned forward, her expression morphing from anger to fear. "What will become of us?" she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. A resounding crash echoed from the hall, and Poirot's heart raced as he turned toward the door. "Stay close," he ordered, making his way towards the sound, the atmosphere electrified with anticipation. "It seems tonight may be only the beginning. We have unmasked the game, but its players have not yet relinquished their final move." As the door burst open, a figure emerged from the shadows, a wild look in their eyes. "They're coming," the intruder gasped, breathless with foreboding. "We cannot hide the truth any longer." The gathered guests exchanged harried glances, the essence of dread mingling with the storm's fury outside. Poirot realized the night was far from over, and he turned slowly, the storm of truth about to unleash its tempest upon them all, each person, a pawn on this precarious chessboard. The stakes had never been higher, and at the center of it all lay the cradle, theirs to protect, but at what cost? "Prepare yourselves," he declared, his tone resolute as he braced himself for the next tumultuous revelation. The truth was poised, trembling on the cusp of its unveiling, and Poirot was determined to unravel the final threads of the tangled web that bound them all. Chapter 10. The Turning of the Key. A sudden crash reverberated through the dimly lit hall, slicing through the oppressive atmosphere like a knife. Poirot's heart raced, his mind working in tandem with the chaos that engulfed Ashcombe Manor. The shadows seemed to stretch and bend ominously behind the guests as they exchanged fearful looks, their collective anxiety palpable. The intruder, a young man with wild hair and wide eyes, stood at the threshold, his breath coming in rapid gasps. "They are coming!" he exclaimed, a tremor running through his voice, echoing against the creaking walls. "We cannot hide the truth any longer." The storm outside roared louder, and the flickering candlelight in the drawing room danced erratically heightening the tension. Poirot's sharp gaze flicked to the gathered suspects: Lady Richford, Lord Hawthorne, Lady Harrington, and Clarissa. Each one wore an expression that reflected not just fear, but also a flicker of long-buried guilt, the kind that simmers just beneath the skin. "Mon cher ami," Poirot said, directing his attention back to the intruder, "who is it that you fear? Whispers curl in the dark, but we seek clarity. Speak, and it may just unlock the truths that bind us to this night." The young man steadied himself, lurching forward into the light. I am Charles, the gardener's son. I overheard them plotting. It's worse than you think. They want to ensure that none of us leave this place, to keep the past buried, to silence anyone who dares. With a sudden urgency, Poirot interjected, "Who are they, Charles? Who seeks to shroud the truth in darkness?" "The family," he stammered, glancing nervously at the faces around him. "Lord Hawthorne and the others have conspired together. It's all tied to the Cradle, the pact. They intend to destroy its remnants forever." An intense quiet fell over the room, the weight of Charles's words sinking in like a stone tossed into still water. Poirot stepped forward, the fire casting flickering shadows across his features, transforming his expression into a grim mask of concentration. He knew each whisper hung by a thread that could fray with a single confession. "What pact do you speak of?" he pressed, his determination unveiled. "The Cradle does indeed hold power, but it is your connection to it that holds more significance. I sense intertwined histories that may prove pivotal." A nervous glance passed between Lord Hawthorne and Lady Harrington. Their silence echoed with the unspoken weight of shared secrets. "Sir, this is absurd," Hawthorne managed, his bravado faltering under the scrutiny. "Do not scaremonger. The boy knows nothing." "But I know the whispers of the manor, my lord," Charles pressed, emboldened by an unexpected surge of confidence. "All those nights spent listening, as the rain lashed against the glass and the thunder growled like a beast outside. I know of the deals made, promises of silence exchanged for safety. The Cradle, it was never just furniture." "Enough," Lady Harrington snapped, her hands clenched and unclenched as if wrestling with her own storm of emotions. "This is irrelevant. We must not let this boy sway our discourse." Poirot's keen eyes missed nothing as he observed her distress, the rapid rise and fall of her chest, the persistent way her gaze slid avoidant towards the darkened corners of the room. "Madame Harrington," he said, his voice calm yet penetrating, "you fear what he may expose, do you not? The Cradle's fabric holds more than memories. It bears witness to silent pacts and compromises made in darkness." The tension in the air thickened as Lady Harrington's mouth pressed into a firm line. "You don't understand," she murmured, the tremor in her voice betraying her stoicism. "It was necessary. We had to ensure the truth did not rip apart our families, our community. It was better to bury the past than let it consume us." "Indeed," Poirot replied, a flash of insight illuminating his expression. "But you've chained yourselves to that silence willingly, not just for protection, but out of a deep well of regret. The Cradle must hold secrets of betrayal that resonate deeply with you all. Each one of you bears the mark of that deceit." Clarissa stepped forward, her voice stronger now, but laced with apprehension. "We've all made selfish choices, sacrifices to protect ourselves and those we love. What of it?" "Therein lies the essence," Poirot exclaimed, his excitement spilling forth like the brewing tempest outside. You share a bond forged in guilt, yet it is also one that holds the potential for redemption. But until you confront these choices, none shall find peace. At once, Lady Richford interjected, a quiver in her voice. Can we truly claim to protect our loved ones with lies? Or is it the cost of our secrets that we must reckon with? What price have we paid to keep it all hidden? A moment of pure tension sparkled through the room as each face turned to Poirot, thirsting for the truth. He took a measured step back and held their gaze evenly, the silence settling like dust in the wake of a storm. Then let us not prolong this evening's anguish, he said firmly. It is time to unlock what has remained concealed for far too long. Each of you shall now reveal your ties to the cradle, each stitch of the tapestry unraveling before the assembly. As recognition flitted across the faces of the assembled guests, a crack of thunder punctuated the darkness outside, the room's atmosphere electric with revelation. Just then, a loud bang resonated from the front door, as if a new player had entered the fray. The candles flickered violently as Poirot, heart-pounding, steadied himself and commanded, "Stay still." We may not have answered all our questions, but the final truth might be at hand. The door swung open, revealing a tall figure silhouetted against the stormy backdrop, a dark trench coat soaked from the rain, and in their hand, gripping tightly, was a tarnished key, the kind that unlocks more than just doors. "Are you ready for the truth?" the figure asked, voice hoarse from the elements, yet resolved. The room plunged into silence as every heart raced, anticipation spiraling into an almost palpable force. Poirot felt the gravity of the moment settle around him like an unyielding cloak. The turning of the key was upon them, and with it, the prospect of discovery that could reshape their futures forever. "Prepare yourselves," Poirot whispered, his mind racing, for the foundations of Ashcombe Manor may tremble under the weight of what is yet to come. And as the key turned, the room braced for the revelations that could change everything. Chapter 11. Confessions in the Dark. The air inside Ashcombe Manor crackled with tension, the storm outside hammering against the walls, leaving the gathered guests paralyzed as the dark figure stepped into the light. With the key still firmly grasped in their hand, the figure pulled back their hood, revealing a familiar face drawn tight with fear and determination. It was Isabel, the governess, her eyes glimmering with a mix of urgency and dread. "Stop," Poirot commanded, the polished accent of urgent authority slicing through the thickening gloom. "We must not proceed hastily. Whatever you have come to reveal, the truth demands clarity." Isabel took a deep breath, her voice wavering slightly as she spoke. "I've overheard conversations, hidden away in the nursery, behind those walls that hold more than memories. They plot to destroy the cradle, to erase the past, to ensure that what lay there will be forgotten forever." The guests shifted, uneasily crossing glances filled with unvoiced fears. Lady Harrington's face drained of colour, and Lord Hawthorne fidgeted under the piercing gaze of Poirot, who now stepped forward, the flickering candlelight gilding his features with an enigmatic glow. "Isabel," he said, his tone calm yet insistent, "you must elaborate. Destruction is but an act of cowardice without motives. What brings these people to such desperate measures?" "The cradle symbolizes everything they'd rather forget," Isabel continued, her hands trembling slightly. "It carries secrets that bind their families, blood ties infused with guilt and betrayal. From my time watching the children, I learned that each month they would gather, whispering about the legacy of that cradle and the sins woven into its fabric. Poirot considered her words. A family, bound by guilt, you say. But guilt for what? Surely each of you cannot bear the sole weight of this shame. He scanned the room for reaction, noting Lady Richford's quivering hands and Charles's penetrating stare of youthful resolve. With an urgency fueled by desperation, Lady Richford broke the silence. "We thought silence would shield our children from the sins of the past," she said, her voice echoing with regret as the shadows of guilt cluttered the air around her. "But it has only shackled us further. When the cradle was returned, we believed it would bring peace. Instead, it has reopened old wounds." Poirot took a step closer to her. "Old wounds indeed, but wounds heal when exposed to light. What do you fear, Madame Richford? What shadows await to engulf you?" "We fear," she hesitated, glancing at Lord Hawthorne, whose jaw clenched tightly. "We fear that the truth will destroy the very fabric of our families. That cradle holds the secrets of betrayal, the betrayals of alliances forged in the name of love that have withered into hate." Charles, emboldened by the tumultuous tension and the confrontation, interjected, "But if we continue to bury these secrets, we do not allow for healing. Are we to sacrifice the next generation for the guilt of the past? That is our burden to bear." Lady Harrington's voice rang out sharply, her composure fraying. She suddenly appeared older in the flickering light, the spectral storm raging outside, only amplifying the emotional tempest within the room. "You do not understand what is at stake. We'll do whatever it takes to protect our children." Poirot's brow furrowed in thought. "And yet, protecting them means perpetuating a cycle of lies. The cradle remains empty because of it. What does it conceal, Madame Harrington? What cannot the young ones bear?" "It is not my story to tell," she snapped, flinching away from Poirot's penetrating gaze. "You cannot expect us to lay bare our dark past in the name of a chaotic truth." "On the contrary," Poirot insisted, a note of fervor creeping into his voice, "it is chaos that surrounds you, Madame, while the truth offers order. If you do not speak, then the legacy of your silence shall be the only inheritance your children are left with, the constant uncertainty, the fear of what shadows lurk in their lineage." With a crack of thunder punctuating his words, Isabel stepped forward again. "What proof do you require? I have been but an observer, but I know what I heard. There are remnants in those whispers, hints of potential harm if the cradle is not protected. I overheard plans—" "Enough!" Lady Harrington shouted, finally cracking under the strain of the truth's unbearable weight. "We have done what we must to survive. We've honored our forebears' legacy through silence. It was the only choice left to us. To unravel it now would mean destruction." Noting the frantic desperation in her tone, Poirot shifted gears, his mind thrumming with instinctive deduction. "Do you then admit to a conspiracy among your ranks?" His voice shifted to a low whisper, casting a furtive glance between them. "Or do you fear a more sinister force, perhaps unrelated to guilt?" The room faltered, confusion blossoming amidst the assembled guests. "There is far more at stake here than mere familial ties," Poirot declared, the intensity of his scrutiny igniting fires of insight. "This has become a game of chess, hasn't it? Pawns sacrificed in the name of safety." A creaking sound echoed through the room, drawing their attention anxiously to the cracked door. The heavy rain continued to fall, whispering secrets against the windows, as the guests spun in tight circles, caught in the intersection of accusation and defense. "What is it, Poirot?" Lord Hawthorne asked, his bravado slipping away under Poirot's unyielding gaze. "The time has come for clarity," Poirot declared, the weight of his words wrapping around them like a shroud. "Someone among you is not merely an innocent player, but a master manipulator. That truth or deception is the key that binds you, and it begins with this cradle. Reveal your truths, confess, and perhaps we may avert disaster." Before anyone could respond, the wind howled ferociously, and then almost imperceptibly, a pale figure slinked through the shadows at the corner of the room. Poirot squinted into the darkness, his mind racing. What revelation would this final intrusion yield? "Who dares trespass?" he called into the void as the figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face draped in regret and turmoil. "I will speak," cried Isabel, her resolve unwavering. "For too long we've feared the truth, but now it rises. Suddenly, in that stark moment, thunder rumbled, and an icy draft swept through the room as the mysterious figure in the shadows revealed a sheathed dagger, glinting ominously in the candlelight. The impact of the revelation shattered the air, leaving every heart racing and every breath stilled. "What you seek is hidden within the cradle itself," the figure whispered. A sense of foreboding cloaked their words. "And the time for secrets is running out." Poirot stepped back, his mind working furiously, the puzzle closer to completion than ever before. Yet looming over them all was a chilling sense of dread. The real murderer had revealed their true colors, and with each confession in the dark, every minute drew nearer to a resolution laced with peril and tragedy. Chapter 12. The Cradle's Last Secret. The storm outside lashed against the windows of Ashcombe Manor, the wind carrying with it a keen chill that infiltrated the very essence of those gathered. Inside, an unsettling silence filled the room, each guest ensnared in a web of expectation, their fate dangling precariously in the hands of Hercule Poirot. With the dagger's silhouette haunting the ambient candlelight, Poirot's keen eyes scrutinized the assembly of faces illuminated by flickering flames, assessing the tension writ large across their features. "Indeed, the mystery is a tempest of shared secrets," Poirot murmured, his voice layered with calm authority. The dagger glimmered ominously as he continued. "And it is the cradle that holds the heart of this tempest. So tell me, who among you has formulated this plan to keep the truth buried? Speak now, for every word is a step toward emancipation." Just then, Isabel broke in, breaking the cascade of confusion. "The dagger, it represents more than mere violence. It embodies the betrayal intertwined within our families." Her voice trembled, yet it rang with conviction. "The cradle was returned, believing it to be a protective relic, but it is a harbinger of our past, one that demands reckoning." Poirot stepped closer to Isabel, absorbing the fervor radiating from her demeanor. "Ah, the harbinger, you say. A sound observation, mademoiselle. However, I need to understand your motives. Why do you seek to protect this past? What do you truly know about the events surrounding the cradle? And what darkness unfurls when its mysteries are laid bare?" The other guests turned toward Isabel, eyes alight with a mixture of hope and suspicion. She hesitated, her gaze darting among them, a pack of wolves circling their own. "It is true," she finally said, her throat constricting. "I overheard words spoken in shadows, plans made to destroy the cradle before it could unveil the sins of our bloodlines." "Who initiated these plans?" Poirot pressed, feeling the weight of urgency as he noted the unease settling in the room. "Who among you cast such a long shadow?" As he spoke, Lady Harrington's expression darkened. Fear danced in her eyes. "Isabel," she whispered, all pretense of authority evaporating, "silence has kept us shielded. What you do now will expose us all to peril, and you have no idea of the consequences." With a subtle firmness, Poirot redirected the focus. "Madame Harrington, you suggest peril in uncovering the past, yet it is in the shadows where treachery thrives. If I understand correctly, many of you banded together, out of fear or perhaps loyalty, to silence the Cradle's truths. But truth has a peculiar way of creeping into light. Wouldn't you agree?" A bolt of lightning crackled outside as Charles, unable to contain himself, interjected, "We felt it was the only way, Poirot. The truth might tear us apart. Can we not allow our past to rest? We thought the Cradle would bring peace." "A most noble thought, through the eyes of love," Poirot replied, his voice fluid yet steadfast. "But is it not the very fabric of love that binds you together? Betrayal mars that fabric, and the truth demands honesty to mend those wounds. You must uncloak your hearts before the dagger, before malevolence dishes out its price." Just then, Lady Richford stammered, I can't bear to see my children suffer any more than they have. We believed shielding them from the Cradle's secret would protect them. But Isabel may be right. Perhaps to expose these shadows is the only way to ensure their liberation." "But what can we expose?" Lady Harrington's voice faltered, the tension tightening around her like a noose. "We have fought so hard to protect them from the repercussions of our choices. Will they not hate us instead?" "Only time reveals the true nature of love," Poirot noted, casting a glance around the room. "In that respect, the Cradle itself is a witness, holding not just memories, but the burdens of your lineage. And the dagger, it holds the last key to the unknown. Perhaps within its manufacture lies the very soul of your family's betrayal." Eyes widened in realization and dread, a collective breath was held. The dagger, sheathed and curled like a serpent waiting to strike, became a symbol of their shared guilt. "What do you mean by the soul?" Isabel asked, pressing toward Poirot, hope mingling with trepidation. "The dagger was wielded by an ancestor, one whose story lies interwoven with this Cradle," he articulated with precision. "Those whispers you heard were but echoes of those events. To decipher the truth, we must bring forth an object whose significance lies not merely in its craft, but in its makers." As the atmosphere thickened with anticipation, Poirot gestured toward the Cradle. "Madame Harrington, tell me, what do you fear discovering within?" "I fear—" She hesitated, swallowing hard. "I fear uncovering the truth behind my sister's choice. The Cradle, my sister, used it as a ruse. She never sought a child of her own. Instead, she—" The creaking floorboards interrupted her confession, drawing tension into razor-like clarity, and a figure, cloaked in shadow, pushed through the doorway. "Enough!" a voice thundered, silencing the room. The guests recoiled, recognizing the familiar silhouette of Lord Hawthorne. "I had hoped this meeting would not descend into chaos," he declared, his presence now commanding, yet betraying, anxiety. "You cannot speak of my sister. She is gone for a reason. Does the truth not linger in her absence?" "What will be your role in this, Hawthorne?" Poirot challenged, intrigued yet alert. "Fear of the past does not permit you to escape accountability. You are as tied to this Cradle as any of us." Lord Hawthorne trembled, yet his reprimanding glare held firm. "Then let us become unbound and embrace the truth." His eyes glinted, filled with deep-seated rage. "But do not think I am without will. I will protect what needs, sheltering, even if it means resorting to drastic measures. Poirot's voice turned cold, recognizing the vehemence behind his words. Desperation only leads to more loss. Have you considered that perhaps to protect means to release? Let us examine the cradle and reveal the dagger's history. As he approached the cradle, the tension reeled tightly, shadows looming around them like grim sentinels. The promise of unraveling the past flickered brightly in the air, poised on the edge of discovery. Only then did the dagger catch the light, its polished surface reflecting not simply light, but the very essence of the truth, dying to surface. The assembled guests could do little but watch as Poirot grasped the dagger and turned toward them with resolute intensity. Do not fear, for light can illuminate the darkest of days. The storm outside seemed to answer, a visceral rumble echoing the significance of his next words. The cradle's last secret remains, and with it lies the fate of your families. We must unravel this, or doom ourselves to the haunting whispers of regret. Here they stood at a crossroads, wrapped in the harrowing tendrils of their secrets, a family scrambling for both light and protection. But which path would they choose? The sunken silence only deepened the weight of Poirot's next line. The dagger weaved in a performance that would drum the heart of the manor. In that moment hung truth itself, precarious as fate turned on a single, unsheathed blade. And with a final, breathtaking breath, everyone waited, knowing their destinies were forever entwined in the cradle's last secret, teetering dangerously between love and irrevocable betrayal.